All right, so today we're diving into, well, you probably guessed it from the title of the show, climate change.
Always a hot topic.
Yeah, no kidding.
And you've sent in a ton of articles from CircLimit,
Yeah, that subreddit is, it's pretty active.
to say the least. So are you ready to get into it?
Absolutely, yeah, let's get to it.
Okay, so just taking a look at everything you've sent over, it seems like climate change, I mean, it's not some abstract thing anymore, you know? It's right here, it's happening now,
Yeah, for sure.
and it's having a real impact.
Yeah, and speaking of impact, we saw a lot of articles about Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, Helene's well, it's a textbook example, really, of how these major weather events, they don't just happen in isolation, you know?
Right, right.
They set off these chain reactions, these cascading effects.
It's like domino.
Oh.
One thing leads to another and then another.
And what's fascinating is the articles you pulled, they go beyond just the immediate impact of the hurricane itself. They
Mm-hmm.
talk about, the long-term consequences.
Right, like what?
We're talking about communities that are just devastated.
Yeah.
Economic fallout that could take years to recover from.
Oh, absolutely.
And even, public health crises that emerge in the aftermath.
Oh, wow, yeah, it's like one hurricane hits, and suddenly we're talking about supply chains and outbreaks of disease.
It's all connected, and that's what makes this so complex.
Yeah.
And speaking of these complex global issues, you also sent in some articles about Indonesia.
Right. Their energy transition.
Exactly. They're really trying to push forward. They're aiming for more renewable energy sources, but, and this is a big but, they're also trying to navigate all these international agreements and figure out the funding.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is, and it kind of highlights how tricky this whole thing can be,
Totally.
Trying to balance these really important immediate needs with these really ambitious long-term goals, it's a tough balancing act for sure.
No kidding. No kidding.
And it just underlines the global nature of this whole challenge, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Indonesia's decisions, they don't just impact Indonesia, just
Mhm.
like what happens with Hurricane Helene, doesn't just stay confined to one specific geographic area.
Everything's connected.
Exactly.
And it's not just, islands and far-off countries.
Yeah.
This article you sent about heat-related deaths here in the U.S. is, it's scary.
It's definitely something to pay attention to.
117% increase
Yeah.
in just 7 years.
Yeah, that's a really significant jump.
So is it just hotter summers? Or is there more to it?
It's complicated, right? The article mentions a few things.
Okay.
One of the big ones is urban heat islands.
What's that?
So basically cities, they get way hotter than the areas around them.
Oh, I never thought about that.
And then you've also got the whole issue of, access to air conditioning.
Oh, wait, right.
And just reliable health care in
Right.
general.
Not everyone has equal access to.
Exactly, especially in more vulnerable communities.
So it's like, it's the heat, but it's also all these other factors that make it worse.
It's all interconnected, which seems to be a running theme with climate change in general, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like that article about Antarctica, for example.
Oh, yeah, that one was,
I mean, Antarctica, right?
it's like the poster child for, like, pristine, untouched nature.
You'd think it would be immune to all this,
Right.
but it's not. Not even close.
Wild.
Warming temperatures, melting ice, it's all happening.
And that's got to have some crazy ripple effects, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. What happens in Antarctica doesn't just stay there.
Right. Ocean currents, sea levels, the whole planet.
Exactly. And that actually brings up another point from these articles, the one about rivers drying up at the fastest rate in 30 years.
Yeah, that was alarming.
And it got me thinking, especially in light of some of these other articles.
Like what?
Well, if rivers are drying up, and we know agriculture is a huge water user, what does that mean for the global food supply?
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And, it's a complex issue. We're already seeing a strain on food production in certain areas because of drought and, unpredictable weather patterns, which, of course, climate change is making worse.
And that leads to...
I mean, it's not just the environment, it's the economy, too. You see price hikes, shortages, even political instability.
Wow. And then there was that article about, was it Sardinia?
Yes, the sheep farmers.
That one was rough.
Blue tongue disease,
Yeah.
directly linked to warmer temperatures, decimating their flock.
It's sad,
Ugh.
their whole livelihood
Yeah.
just gone.
And it really brings it home, Climate change, it's not so abstract concept, it's people's lives.
It's about real people, real communities dealing with the consequences.
And it's happening right now, all over the world.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling, a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, it can be a lot.
It's like hurricanes, melting ice, farmers struggling. It's just a lot to process.
It really makes you realize how big this whole climate change thing really
It
is.
really does. So where do we go from here? What can we even do?
Well, it's important to remember, even with all these challenges, there are glimmers of hope, signs of progress.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, like that story about the cement plant.
In Norway, right.
Yeah. Who knew cement could be like a good thing?
It's a perfect example of how industries are starting to change.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So this plant, they've got this whole new process, cuts their carbon emissions way down.
Wow. So it actually works.
It does. And get this, they're sharing what they've learned with other companies.
That's awesome.
It could change the whole industry.
So it's not all like doom and gloom.
No, definitely not. And it's not just this one plant. I mean, we're seeing more and more renewable energy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Communities are coming together, finding solutions that work for them. And even universities are getting involved.
Really? How so?
Well, like UC San Diego, they're making climate change education a core part of their curriculum.
That's amazing.
So yeah, things are happening. It's not all bad news.
So we're seeing action, like on multiple fronts.
Exactly. From these big industries to college students, it's everywhere.
And hopefully that leads to even more action.
Exactly. And that's what's so cool about, these online communities like Circlimate.
Totally.
It gives people a place to talk about this stuff, share information.
And hopefully feel a little less alone, right?
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's about what we do with this information.
Yeah. It's not enough to just read these articles and feel bad.
Right. Every choice we make, from what we buy to who we vote for, it all matters.
So this deep dive, it's been a lot. We've talked about some scary stuff, some hopeful stuff.
It's a lot to take in.
But I think the biggest takeaway for me is climate change, it's complex, but we can't just ignore it.
Absolutely. And the more we understand, the better equipped we are to actually make a difference.
Well said. Well said. So, on that note, thank you for listening to this deep dive. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the articles we talked about, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.